Hey guys, Draven Arts Productions here, and today we're going to be reviewing the Thomas and Friends Sodor Adventure Pack from the Metal Collection, which was a Walmart exclusive, and this cost around $32.98. I also picked up the Rust-Oleum Berry Pink Spray Paint and the Stevie Wonder album. Alright, so here is what the box looks like as it displays all of the characters, on which we'll get to later. And then of course on the side here it says exclusive Thomas, and then another one that it says exclusive Thomas in a different language. And then of course the Metal Collection, 3+, and then the name itself. And then of course you got Thomas and Percy. And then on the side it shows you Thomas, Percy, James, and Henry. And then on the other side, had Thomas and James. And then on the top, not only the various names of Sodor Adventure Pack, but also James and Percy. Really nice box. And then of course at the bottom, you have James and Henry. And then here is the back itself, revealing the engines. So you have this exclusive Thomas, Percy, Henry, Annie and Clarabel, and James. Overall, this is a really nice display. Anyway, so you have the old Hit Entertainment logo, despite the fact that Hit had defunct nearly a decade at this point. And then Metel and all of the licensing information. And that's the box itself. Let's get into opening this thing. Here we go. And here are all the engines. I may have ripped the side while I was getting the engines out, but I'm not going to be too worried about that. Anyway, let's take a look at the Thomas characters from the Sodor Adventure Pack from the Metal Collection. Starting off with the exclusive Thomas. So this is what the front of the Metal Collection Thomas looks like, and he looks really nice. He has a really nice face, and he has a tail lamp, and then of course his buffers are printed, and then of course the side right here has the rivets and handrails like he always does in like seasons 23 and 24 during Big World Big Adventures, and of course he has the side rods onto them, which is really nice, even though they do stick out at the front. But to me, I don't mind this at all because it makes me think of the Thomas Ertl range. And it's also nice that the cab right here is hollow, which is pretty cool. And then the back itself has a tail lamp, which is nice. And then the back buffers aren't even painted, but hey, quality control for you. And then the side, of course, is exactly the same, except you have a painter painting Thomas's lining, which is really nice, and it looks really cool. And then of course the new wheels, which are really nice. And then the bottom of the engine, and then of course the top where you have the dome and the whistle. Although it would have been nice if Thomas was given like the windows, just so it wouldn't be bland and just nothing. But hey, beggars can't be choosers, and I would have to detail them myself. So yeah, that's the exclusive Thomas. He looks really nice, and I have yet to find the Ruby Thomas and the Storybook Thomas, as well as a regular Thomas. Alright, next up we have the big green tender engine himself, Henry. So his face is pretty accurate of how it was in the show, and then of course, printed buffers. And then of course, the side right here, and it looks nice, and has some of the rivets that were given to him. The side rods, and all that, and then the handrails, the back, and then the other side, the top, and the bottom of Henry. He looks really nice. I do wish that Henry was a little bit taller, but hey, he looks better than the original Trackmaster push-along version of Henry. Now, onto the tender, and it looks pretty good for what it is. Nothing to say about it, aside from the detailed rivets. And it looks alright. And it may be a little bit awkward of how it was designed, but I'm getting used to this tender. I will do the comparisons later in the video. Now, on to James. So, as you can see from the body right here, he does reuse some assets from All Engines Go James. So, here is the front itself. Looks nice because he has that nice looking CGI face. And then the buffers. And then the side where he has gray wheels instead of black. And then, of course, he has golden side rods, which I believe it's like they're basing off of James from like promotional material. And then, of course, the back where the cab is hollow, which is always nice. And then the other side, and then his golden dome and his whistle and the bottom of James. I gotta say, he looks really nice. And as for the tender, it looked good. Despite being like a reskin of All Engines Go's James's tender. And once again, I will do the comparisons later. So yeah, that's James's tender. Now on to Thomas's best friend, Percy. And the face is alright. He looked fine, although I can understand why it may not be uneasy or uneven to some people because those big pupils on Percy, it just looks like they're just gonna stare right into their souls. Yeah. Anyway, so you have the printed buffers, and then the side here where you have the little rivets, as you can see, and then his 6. Oh my god, that is like humongous. Although not as humongous as the 2020 Talking Interactive Percy. And then this is what the wheels are, and the side rods, and then the back, pretty plain. But hey, at the very least he has printed buffers, unlike Thomas. And then the other side, and then the whistle and the dome. A really nice Percy. And he looks better than the Trackmaster Push-Along Percy in terms of the proportions because he is supposed to be a small engine after all. Although I do wish that they would just give Percy the green cylinders just to make him look more complete. But hey, that's just me. That's Percy. And now, on to Annie and Clarabel now. And as you can see from these gals, basically like reissues of the previous Trackmaster Push-Along range. But I will give this a pass because they do have some nice details. Like you have the passengers on both sides, and it looked really nice. The wheels are really nice as well. And of course the other details like the handrails, I think. And then the faces are really nice. Like you can literally see the gals like wearing like red lipstick on the lips, their faces. And it looks really nice. They look nice. They look pretty cute. And I'm glad that the windows on these gals are detailed compared to the OG ones. Although the paint on them are not perfect, as you can see with Annie right here. As you can see, there's like a little bit of that imperfection on the right side of her face. I gotta be very careful with that. Alright, on to the comparisons. First up is Metal Collection Thomas against the Trackmaster Push-Along / Push-Along Thomas. So, as you can see here, the faces are pretty different from each other. And, of course, this Thomas has a tail lamp, while this Thomas doesn't. And of course, the Thomas doesn't have detail buffers, so I had to detail them myself, as well as doing the running board all around his running board and all that. Although I didn't do the whistles. And then on the side right here, this space right here on this Thomas is like hollow, while this one is just literally apart from the body itself. And of course, the placing between the wheels is completely different. Not to mention that the cabs are different from each other. This Thomas right here reuses the Adventures Thomas and just put onto a push-along chassis. And that is where it was remained for like pretty much the rest of the range. While here, they completely fixed this issue. And then the back right here, where this Thomas has a tail lamp, while this one doesn't. Although I have to do the rectangle red lining on his bunker myself. And of course, this one has unpainted buffers, so I will have to detail that myself, just like I did to this Thomas here. And then the other side, of course, it has like a painting Thomas, because this is a exclusive Thomas, and this is like a regular Trackmaster push-along Thomas, so I don't have the Metal Collection normal Thomas to compare to. So this is what you're gonna get right now until then. And then the bottoms of the chassis are different, where one of them is like riveted in, while here has one screw and a rivet. So in terms of looks and accuracies, the Metal Collection Thomas wins by a long shot, because he looks a heck of a lot better than he was before, and the addition of the side rods helped with that, as well as the updated wheels, despite that the wheels are placed far back into his running board and not pairing up with the wheel arches. But hey, that's a minor nitpick. Now on to Henry, starting with the front of the two Henrys. The faces are pretty different, obviously, and this Henry right here has 3 lamp irons, while this Henry doesn't. But the frames are like part of the body, I think, while this Henry right here has no detail at all. And then the side right here is completely different wheel configurations and all. And of course, different printing. And then the backs are different. And then the side, the top. Yeah, this is how the cab looks on the Trackmaster push-along model. And this is how the cab looks like on the Metal Collection Henry. And you could barely see the cab, man. And then the bottom itself. And now onto the tenders. This is what it looks like, basically. The Trackmaster push-along Henry's tender is pretty big compared to this tender right here. And this Henry tender right here has like a buffer beams. Unlike this one, where the buffers are here like just like molded onto the tender and does not contain any buffer beams at all. But hey, at the very least, this little detail right at the back is a part of the mold where they made the coal. So that's nice. So that's the comparisons on Henry. All right, now on to James. And as you can see, the faces are different. Like I said before, this one has the lamp irons, while this one doesn't, and have this part of the frames. And then the sides and the wheels are different and all. And then the backs are different, where the Metal Collection James has a hollow cab, while this one has like nothing. And then the other side right here and then the tops where you have a really nice dome, and then on this one, it's just like a part of the mold. Oh yeah, I almost forgot about the wheel arches placement here. This one did a little bit better, while this, they didn't even literally try. Instead, have his wheel arches to be part of the 6 driving wheels. I mean, come on. And last but not least, here are the bottoms of the engines. Alright, now onto the tenders. And unlike Henry, the Trackmaster Push-Along's tender is like closer in height to this tender right here. And of course, the printing is pretty different and the number 5s are different, so yeah. But at the very least for this James, it has printed buffers, so that's a plus. So yeah, that's James's tenders. Also, I forgot to mention this, James is pretty tall when put up next to Thomas and Henry. Look at the sizing comparisons from the Trackmaster Push-Alongs and look at here. Alright, now on to Percy. And of course, there are some differences. This Percy right here is a little bit elongated to me. But with this Percy, since that he's supposed to be like a small engine, this is how you do it. And then of course, the faces are different. And then of course has printed buffers, while this one doesn't. And then the sides right here, the number 6s are different. This one is like regular, normal size, while this one is like big size. And then of course, the domes and whistles are different. Of course, this one has like the cylinders, unlike this one. The backs, the sides, and the bottom. So yeah, the Metal Collection Percy wins by a large margin for me. Alright, now on to Annie and Clarabel. So, let's start with Annie first. So, as you can see, the orange-brownish color on these gals are completely different from each other. Same for the lettering on Annie, and even the details on the handrails, I think. And then, of course, the faces are completely different. Same for the wheels, as well as the buffer beams. And as for the roofs, I think they're like the same color. The same thing can be said for Clarabel, too. Oh yeah, the painted windows on these gals are completely different. One of them is painted black, and the other is painted gray. And then, of course, the sides right here are like gray and yellow, and just added passengers, which is a really nice touch compared to the old push-along Annie and Clarabels. So in terms of what version of Annie and Clarabel that I prefer, I think I'm leaning towards the Metal Collection ones. I don't know, something about the lipstick that they gave to them, as well as putting a little bit of the details, makes a world of a difference to me. So in conclusion, what do I think of the Thomas & Friends Metal Collection Sodor Adventure Pack? Well, I think that this is a really nice pack. Not only for getting James, Percy, and Henry, but also the exclusive version of Thomas, as well as the new versions of Annie and Clarabel. And despite some height inconsistencies with James, because he reuses some of the tooling from the All Engines Go James, they look really good. So with that, I give the Metal Collection Sodor Adventure Pack a 7 out of 10. Alright, so let's have the Metal Collection engines being pulled along by Classic Thomas. Off we go. And that is the little montage of the Sodor Adventure Pack from the Metal Collection range. I hope you guys enjoy. Make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the review. And let me know what are your thoughts on the whole pack in general. Do you think that it is good? Do you think it's alright? Let me know in the comments. This is Dre Edwards signing off. I'll see you again soon.